Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Candy Bee Knittin'. I'm Candy Bee. I be knitting. I hope you be knitting too. And today I want to share with y'all my most recent pattern purchase and cast on, as well as some yarn I bought to go with the pattern. And so I guess I'll start by saying that one of my goals for a while now has been to slowly replace everything in my house with knitted versions. So I have knitted placemats on my kitchen table. I have knitted washcloths in my bathroom. We got blankets and sweaters and hats and all the normal things people have, will knit. I have not replaced my family with knitted versions of them yet. But one of the things I realize I'm lacking is I don't have much knitting in my bedroom, and I was thinking about doing maybe a rug. I've been wanting to do like a bedspread too, and my idea behind this is just some sort of something lightweight that I can lay across my bed that can stay on my bed for all seasons. I live in Virginia in the United States, so pretty mild temperature, so I don't really need a heavy, big, bulky blanket on my bed. And when I was a kid, I had these white cotton blankets on my bed that I always liked, because at nighttime I do get a little hot, but then like you put the blanket on and you're a little hot, and you take the blanket off, you're a little cold. And so the idea of just a nice lightweight cotton-esque blanket has appealed to me, but also having something lovely and hand knitted in my bedroom so that I can continue to spread that knit love throughout my house. The thing that kind of sparked that in me is I've been looking at a lot of like quilts, and I do admire quilting a lot. I am not a sewist by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been seeing, I see this 8-point star thing a lot, and I went through Ravelry and I was looking for any pattern with that kind of inspiration behind it. And Laura Penrose just dropped the Sweet Shop blanket, and she's kind of got squares on the bias that you could work in that direction, and I was considering that. Then I saw the Flyaway blanket by Tin Can Knits, and I was like, oh, that's nice too. And I liked that there was some I liked the pattern pictures. It was very graphic. I actually worked up a sketch thinking about some different colors and just the idea that it's kind of scrappy and put together, but with the central idea being this 8-point star. And I came across and I finally settled on a pattern called Kagan's Quilt by Carolyn Bloom, and her handle is Bloom Handmade Studios. And the thing that made me really pull the trigger on this one, I also looked at library books. I was looking at tutorials. A lot of people said that they use Purl Soho's half and half triangles wrap to figure out how to do modular squares. And I was thinking to myself, I could reverse engineer this and figure this out and do squares and sew them together, but I'm already trying to figure out the coloring, already figuring out the placement of everything, and I've got different bowls I'm weighing and juggling. I really don't want to figure out a pattern on top of that, I'm in this mode where I really wanted a long-term pattern. I've been knitting a few years now, and my mode has always been hurry up and finish whatever you're working on, because if you stop, if you delay, then you're going to procrastinate and you're not going to finish what you started, because that has been the pattern with a lot of other things in my life. But now that I'm knitting and I realize that it's something that's going to stick around for a while, this idea of having an ongoing project appeals to me, and the idea of having a written pattern means that I can put it down for months at a time and pull out my pattern and know exactly where I need to be. So I decided to buy this pattern, Kagan's Quilt. One, because it had that one motif I was looking at, but then it has all of these other motifs in it. They call this a pinwheel, and some arrows and stripes and things. And to me, it's like, okay, I can do this quilt for my bed, and I'm working with a king size bed. I've never made a blanket that big before, so the idea of something more modular feels like I'll be able to kind of customize it for what I'm looking for and get it just the right, length and width. But also the idea that, once I buy this pattern, I could make one whole baby blanket just with this motif here, or, play with different yarn weights and stuff like this. This pattern is written for fingering weight scraps, but you can easily do the math to figure out how to do different yarn. And the other thing I was thinking about is I was like, oh, like I said, I can reverse engineer the squares. I know how to knit a square. Most squares in this type of motif are used with short rows, and I was like, I can figure that out. But I think a lot of times knitting, I think about how much the yarn is going to cost. I think about how much the pattern is going to cost. But I suspect a lot of other knitters don't think about like how much their time is worth. And so I'm sitting here scrolling through Ravelry, writing different motifs, figuring out how to, I'm going to place these squares, and, literally reinventing the wheel when someone already wrote the wheel for me. So I was just like, let me just, I'm spending hours looking through patterns. Let me just buy the one that looks exactly like what I'm going for. And so I went with that. For this project, I am using, that brings us to our next segment, my latest yarn purchase, Happy Place yarn. And that is the newest yarn from Hobie and Toni Lipsey. And if you don't know who Toni Lipsey is, she is at TL Yarncraft. She's a YouTuber. She's got Instagram. She's an author. She's got brand endorsements up the wazoo. And she pretty much was one of my entry points into the yarny knitting crochet community. I don't crochet, but I started off watching her videos just because she's such a popular, ubiquitous YouTuber, and I still watch her videos even though I don't crochet. I enjoy her YouTube videos. She's one of those people that when she pops up in my feed, I'm watching her videos. She also does a lot of really great yarn reviews, and like I was saying on the last episode, I don't always get to go out to the yarn stores or order online and see what different platforms are are offering what yarns, and she's a really great resource for that. And so it feels kind of like full circle that she would come out with her own yarn. And now I'm in a place where I can knit things out of her yarn. And so I'm just going to read some of the specs on the yarn right off the label. I'll also have a link in the description. And this is Happy Place yarn. This is the solid color in the colorway Almond. And Hobie does this thing where they have names of colors on their website, but when you actually get the yarn, it just has a number. And so I won't be able to tell you all the colorway names because that would involve me going to my email address and seeing what I ordered. But this is 50% cotton, 50% wool, 100 grams per 100 grams per 250 meters, or 3.5 ounces per 273 yards, which would be categorized as a DK weight yarn. Recommended needle size is a 6. Crochet hook is 5 millimeter. US 6 knitting needle, by the way. Machine wash, cold, don't dry it, don't iron it, all the other yarny stuff. And the thing that got me about this yarn is, one, as I was saying before, I want a really lightweight blanket. It's got that cotton in it, so it's going to have a nice structure to it. It's going to keep me cool in the summertime, but also that wool in there brings kind of a luxuriousness to the fabric, a softness to the fabric, but also wool has certain properties of temperature control. And so it's a DK weight yarn, so this thinness is, going to lend itself well to exactly what I'm thinking. And the other thing that I really like about this is that every color comes in a solid version and a melange color. So I'm just going to show you a few squares of what I've been working on. This is for that 8-point triangle, and I love the idea of doing a color wheel with that 8-point star. I love the idea of doing a color wheel. And so you see that you have a dark color here that's more of a solid color, and then they have this melange where you can see more of the cotton coming through. I'm knitting this on size 7 needles because I really wanted to use my straight wooden needles, because that's the other mode I was in. These are the first knitting needles I ever owned. I got them out of Knitting Magazine. Knitting Magazine always has little extras in it, and so I've had these knitting needles literally for years before I started knitting. And I knew this is going to be a big ongoing project, so knitting needles are also wooden knitting needles are also a lot more ergonomic, softer on the hands. I don't have a problem working with cotton yarn. A lot of people complain that it hurts their hands, and because it doesn't have a lot of give to it, and I guess the wool kind of balances it out at this point. But I like the structure and the tension that I get from a cotton yarn, but it is nicely balanced out by the wool in this case. The only thing when you're working with cotton, it does draw moisture out of my hands, so I do have to make sure my hands are very moisturized when I'm working with it. First I'm going to show you the colors that I got, and then I'm going to get into kind of like a little mini review of what I think of the yarn. So this is one square, and you see this is the red color, and then the melange of the red. I got a turquoise color, or teal, I believe this is the teal color. This is the green color. And then I got a yellow color. This yellow and this green are very much colors that I have around my house right now. So these were like kind of like no-brainer colors when I picked these out. Teal is another one of my favorite colors. Quickly, in the pattern calls for a garter stitch, and it's very easy to switch a garter stitch to a stockinette stitch, and that's why it's curling in this way. But this is this square has been blocked right here, and so I just got it wet. A little bit of pink in the water, but I don't think it's going to be a big problem. And then I blocked it out to the right size, and then before I seam all of these together, I'll block them out to the same size. And then once I have one motif, then I can move on to the next motif. I also got this blue color. I think this is blueberry. And I haven't gotten the chance to knit this up yet. And this is the almond color, as I said before, and I'm going to use this as a border color. And my thoughts on the yarn, like I said, it's perfect for this application. A nice lightweight blanket, nice natural fibers, breathable fabrics. It's going to work for all seasons. The yarn itself is very lovely to work with. I've had very minimal splitting, especially considering that it is the wool and the cotton together. I'll give it to you honestly. Toni has been very transparent with what her intentions are, and this is her yarn. So this is her vision. And so either you're going to jive with it or you're not. And her vision, she said she absolutely did not want to do like a Roy G. Biv rainbow. I'm very much a rainbow person. So it was a bit of a struggle for me to find those colors that I really felt were going to make a true color wheel and really pop for me. If you are a person that's more, she has like, I was on the website, and that's another issue too, is Hobie is only online, and so it was kind of difficult for me I went through Instagram, the hashtags, all that kind of stuff to figure out what the coloring was going to be, and so I really had to spend some time figuring out which colors were going to be true to my aesthetic but also within what Toni's vision is. So when this is done, this blanket is going to be like 1/4 Toni, one, 3/4 Candy B. For instance, she has an aubergine color, and purple is literally my favorite color. The aubergine, though, has, a bit more brown to it and is much more of a subdued color than I would have wanted from like oh, that's the purple that you have, and it's very much toned down. She's got quite a few different creams and whites and browns, which if that's your thing, go for it. But I was just like, oh, what, that orangish brown, it looks a lot like this kind of tannish caramely brown. I don't really see, I don't, maybe in person they're, incredibly different, but I don't think they are, because of what her intention was. She wanted to make a cohesive color line. When Lion Brand calls me and I have my own yarn line, I can have obnoxious chartreuse and wild bubblegum and do all the crazy things. But her aesthetic, if you've seen how she dresses, how she presents her brand, it is very like kind of coastal. It has a little bit of sophistication to it, so you're not gonna see like glow in the dark bright neon colors. That being said, if you are a person who's like, oh, I want to knit with more colors, or I want to crochet with more colors, but I don't know, I don't have a good sense of color theory, then this is probably a good place to start, because all the yarns really do kind of mesh well together, and it's really is a cohesive vision. And that's part of the reason why I picked it for this blanket, is because I know I can be a bit wild on picking different colors, and this way I'm gonna have something that can last. And whether we change the furniture in our bedroom, we paint the walls, we'll still have something a little bit classier on our bed than a wild thrift store situation that I am known to knit. That being said, like I said, the aubergine isn't really a true purple. This is considered a red, and when I pulled this out of the bag, Mr. Rulud said, oh, orange. And we usually don't agree on colors that much, and so the fact that we both saw more of oranginess into it, and I really wanted like a pop of red, and so also the way I believe you have wool and cotton blended together, and wool and cotton take dye very differently, and so within the solid yarn you do get a bit of heathering and a bit of the melange effect, which lends itself to the melanges and the solids going very well together. But at the same time, for the purposes of this square, I was hoping to get a bit of a higher contrast, especially in this teal square. To me, it was, at first I figured it out, obviously I can see it now, but when I pulled the balls out, I was like, did I get two melange teals, and so I do wish I could see more of a contrast there. I did have to go back to my online order and look at the colors and be like, okay, this is what I ordered, okay. And all of the labels were, just fine. I have seen some people be like, where Hobie did mess up their order. But I believe this is exactly what I ordered, but just, that's not what I was expecting. I do recommend you go to Toni's Instagram, because she has tons of pictures of different color palettes together in her highlights. I got 11 balls all together, which is about 3,000 yards, which should be enough to make a blanket, but I also like the fact that, if I run out, I can get more, and I can, maybe experiment with some different colors. I don't know how far one ball is going to get me for the border. So the idea of using a commercial yarn is, spot on as far as a blanket. If I make it and it's not quite big enough, I can always grab more. And the fact that it's modular, it's going to be easy to just seam up. I will say the price was exactly right, especially since it's a commercial weight yarn that's 100% natural plant-based, animal-based fibers. It's about $9 a ball, but when it released, all the balls were 30% off, so I got them for about $7. And Toni has since shared another link and it's gone 30% off again. Some of the colors are sold out. Like that aubergine is sold out. So, be on the lookout for when they restock, but I'm sure they'll, Hobie has sales all the time. I will say about ordering from Hobie, I was very nervous because Hobie is based in Denmark and I don't purchase a lot of things internationally, and that makes me a bit nervous. But I had no issues at all. Everything arrived. It arrived on time. A lot of people don't like that they ship their things in bags. And that's a little bit nerve-wracking considering that this is, yarn I want to use for something. If it gets ripped and gets wet or something like that, you don't really want that. But from what I've heard, they have really great customer service. Something does go wrong, but a lot of people don't like just the loose plastic. You open this plastic bag and, yarn balls are just popping out all over the place. Some people in like Canada and Australia had issues. You have to pay different import taxes and duties and things like that. But from what I've heard, everyone's been able to get their stuff. And if not, Hobie is, a pretty well-established company. But I do wish that, it was available in the United States and I could go in and see the colors and touch the colors and see them together. So that's the only real big drawback. I'm just reviewing my notes. I think I said everything I wanted to say about this project and this yarn. So I'm going to leave that with y'all and that's what I've got to say for the week. I'd like to know, what kind of knitting mode are you in? Are you sitting down with long-term projects right now? Are you doing little quick win projects? This modular type knitting is the perfect balance of those things, because like last night I got off from work, came home, sat down and made a square before, and pretty much wrapped it up before the kids went to bed, and then had the rest of the evening to myself to do other things. And so it's like this, like, oh, this might take me a year to do this, but also, if I cast off one project, move on to the next one, I have I can just do a little square on a weekend and feel like I did something. Or are you doing that kind of knitting, more modular knitting? Are you doing the long-term projects? Are you working on a bunch of gifts right now? Are you working on your straight needles that make you feel like, oh, I'm doing like the granny from Looney Tunes thing? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're working on. And as always, I be knitting, you be knitting. And, do all the YouTube things. Like, subscribe, email me, DM me at Rulude on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And until next week, peace.